G'day. Nearly 1.2 million US dollars. That's what Lando Norris and Max Verstappen will have to stump up for their 2026 FIA Super Licence. But what is a Super Licence? An FIA Super Licence is a requirement to race in Formula One. It's not a normal plastic licence like you and I might hold. It's a piece of paper that I'm not even sure the drivers actually see. But you can't race in F1 without one. Let's look at what they cost before I go into how a driver secures one. The more successful a driver is, the higher the licence price. For 2026, Lando's licence will cost €1,023,658. That's about 1.2 million US. Max? About 5,000 euros less. And it's the FIA that charges drivers for their super licence, although the teams end up paying for it. How is this figure arrived at? Well, there's a base rate of €11,842, that's about 14,000 US, plus €2,392 for every point scored during the 25 season. There are 101 points handed out at all of the 24 races, plus 36 points for every sprint race, and there are 6 of those throughout the year. That means a total of 2,640 points. Multiply that by €2,392 and add 22 lots of base fees, and the FIA collects just over €6.5 million. That's 7.7 million US. So let's have a look at what each driver will pay for their 2026 licence. Lando and Max just above $1 million, Oscar slightly below it, a gap to George Russell and then Charles Leclerc, 2 drivers in the 300,000 range, 8 drivers paying from 186,000 down to 102,000, Lawson and Ocon on the same rate as are Stroll and Tsunoda, followed by Pierre Gasly and then Gabriel Bortoleto, with the 2 returning drivers on the base rate. As I said before, the teams pay these fees, and McLaren has the biggest bill because their 2 drivers amassed the most points. They'll send the FIA just over €2 million, but winning the Constructors' title sees them collecting at least €130 million, so a couple of million euros to the FIA is no big deal. And who's paying the least? Cadillac, because neither of their 2 drivers scored any points last year. Now, just briefly, thank you to Holofly for sponsoring this video. Staying connected this year has been simple with my Holofly eSIM. No hunting for Wi-Fi or lining up for a local SIM. I land, turn my phone on, and I'm online instantly. Holofly gives you unlimited data in 200 destinations worldwide. Setup is quick. Just visit the Holofly website or app before you travel, choose the number of days you need from 1 to 90, and after you buy your plan, you'll receive a QR code straight away. Install it on your home Wi-Fi, then activate it when you arrive. Simple. There are no hidden costs and no stress. You can navigate the city, upload your content, stay in touch with family and friends with complete ease. Get your Holofly eSIM using the link in the description, and use my code KIMELLMAN for a special discount. Let's go back to this table and you'll see Lando's licence fee is about 86 times more than the bottom driver. Well, there are actually 3 drivers at the bottom of this year's list, Franco Colapinto, who didn't score any points this season, and Valtteri Bottas and Sergio Perez, who didn't race last year, so those 3 will be slugged just the base rate of €11,842. So what is the purpose of a super licence? Firstly, it's a way to ensure that drivers earn their place on the F1 grid and don't just buy their way in. Ongoing, it gives the FIA a mechanism to suspend or get rid of drivers who don't do the right thing. I'll go into that a little later in this video. So what happens to the money? Well, it goes to the FIA, who use it for a variety of things like safety improvements. And why do the most successful drivers have to pay the most? It's deemed fairer. Those drivers, teams are obviously doing well and can afford more, a bit like income tax. To get a super licence, a driver must earn 40 points over the prior 3 seasons. There are a whole host of racing series that will earn you points. F2 is the most lucrative, 40 points for finishing in the top 3, and then the points reduce as you get down to 10th in the championship. You even accrue 2 points if you don't get any penalties throughout the year. Then IndyCar and F3, and the list goes on, right down to certain karting competitions. You might already be aware that Colton Herta is switching from IndyCar to F2 in 2026 in the hope of securing enough points to be able to get his super licence for 2027, and most likely will be called up to drive for Cadillac. At the moment, he's got 35 points to his name, but he still needs 5 more to get to the 40. In short, if he finishes 8th or higher in F2 in 2026, he'll get his super licence for 27. But if he finishes lower than 8th, he can still get his super licence by doing a number of FP1 sessions with Cadillac, because they earn him 1 super licence point for every session. But if he's not doing well in F2 and has to rely on FP1 sessions, I don't think there's any guarantee he'd get a seat in Formula One. Now, still on the subject of IndyCar drivers intent on making it into F1, they have the FIA to thank, as recently the number of super license points available in the US-based open wheel series has risen from 124 points to 148. Those finishing between 3rd and 9th in the IndyCar Championships will be the big winners. Of course, there are other requirements for getting a super license outside of those points. A driver must be at least 18 years of age, although exceptions can be made, but teams would need to present a compelling case to the FIA. That minimum age requirement was only brought in, going back to 2016 after Max Verstappen made his F1 session debut in FP1 at the 2014 Japanese Grand Prix, aged just 17 years and 3 days old, before joining the grid full-time the following season. Previously, drivers had to have a road license to get an F1 super license, but in 2024 that was canned. They also need to complete at least 80% of 2 full seasons in a single-seater championship, complete 300 kilometres in a representative F1 car over no more than 2 days, either as part of an official F1 session or in a test certified by a national racing authority. They'll need an international Grade A competition licence, plus they need to pass a theory test on F1 rules and regulations. While the need to have a road licence is no longer in effect, a road traffic offence could result in a driver having their super licence temporarily or permanently suspended if the offence is serious enough. For less serious offences, a driver might receive a warning or be required to accomplish some work in the interest of motorsport. You might remember that Lewis Hamilton was caught by police doing donuts on a Melbourne street after the 2010 Australian Grand Prix. I'd expect that sort of incident would be just the thing that the FIA would look at under this sporting code rule. Let's compare what drivers will pay next year with what they paid this year, and you'll see that these drivers are all having to pay more. Now, these drivers here, they'll pay less. Carlos is the big winner here, but I'm certain he'd rather be paying more, because he would have had a more successful season. Do rookie drivers taking part in FP1 sessions need a licence? No, these compulsory sessions are set aside for rookies who don't have licences. And as I mentioned earlier, drivers can actually earn points towards their F1 super licence for taking part in those FP1 sessions. Do drivers earn prize money for where they finish on the World Drivers' Championship list? No, certainly not from the FIA, but there would be bonuses paid by the teams and perhaps even sponsors. Certainly top drivers will be rewarded for podiums and wins, whereas drivers from lower placed teams might end up picking up bonuses just for scoring points. It'll be detailed in their contracts. Can you lose your F1 super licence altogether? Yes. It's only happened once, and that was to Yuji Ide in 2006. He was demoted to 3rd driver after 4 races and subsequently lost his FIA super licence. Kimi Räikkönen said of him, he was quite slow and was spinning quite often. He was clearly a danger. And just like road licences, F1 drivers incur penalty points on their super licence. Different infringements result in different points penalties, but if a driver hits 12 penalty points, they have to sit out a race. The points do disappear a year after they've been incurred, and the driver at the moment who is closest to getting a 1-race suspension is Oliver Bearman. He sits on 10, 2 more points, and he'll find himself sitting out 1 race. And given the first points don't drop off for him until May 26, he'll have to have 7 clean races, otherwise Haas's reserve driver will substitute for Ollie. Interestingly, the last time a driver had to sit out a race because of penalty points was Kevin Magnussen in 2024, who was he replaced by? Ollie Bearman at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. So who would have missed out on a super licence if the current system was in place when those drivers first started? Daniel Ricciardo, he would have missed out by 2 points. Max and Seb wouldn't have satisfied several criteria, and 2-time World Drivers' champion Fernando Alonso would have been 10 points shy of the required number. What a loss that would have been if those 4 had never made it into the sport. Now, before I leave you, at the time of recording this, I just had confirmation that Lando Norris will be racing in number 1 next year, taking over from Max Verstappen. Max is going to take over Daniel Ricciardo's old number, 3, and Arvid Lindblad will race with 41. The other 17 will retain their numbers from this year, and Valtteri Bottas and Sergio Perez will use the numbers they used in 2024. Now, this being my final video of 2025, pending some monster story that might drop, I need to thank a couple of people. First of all, my wife and my 2 boys for supporting me in every way on this journey. It's a grueling schedule for all of us, I can promise you. And more thanks go to Jack, Jade, Michael, Kiralee, Ryan and Pavel in Perth. 2026 is going to be a big year for Formula One and for my channel. I do hope to have you on board. What next? Thanks for watching. Stay passionate. That's good.